Right now. Well, good afternoon and welcome to track 1B of the Mars Society 2014 convention. I'm Jean Hunter and I'll be talking to you today about a crew that went out to MDRS this October to help celebrate World Space Week. Okay, next slide. Okay, Mama, I'm gonna like wave at you when I want the slide. Okay, great. So before I was asked to be on this crew, I didn't know what World Space Week was. Had to go look it up. It's actually an annual space event, the biggest annual space event in the world. It was established by the UN in 1999 to commemorate both Sputnik and the Outer Space Treaty. And its purpose is to bring space from the people who do space for a living out to everybody else. It's a huge outreach event. Okay. It has many purposes, as you can read here. Mostly, as you can see, outreach, educating people around the world about space and the benefits that they receive from it. Encouraging greater use of space for sustainable and peaceful development, and to excite young people about science, technology, engineering, and math. And the last one, I didn't really think much of until I went out to MDRS for World Space Week. But what we did really did foster international cooperation in space outreach and education. Okay. Every year at World Space Week, there's a different theme. They range from medical to historical, to mystical, and political. And this past one was Exploring Mars, Discovering Earth, which made it a wonderful fit for the Mars Desert Research Station. Here are our crew. We started out with 6. In the back, that's John Rask, our commander. Next to him, Haritina Mogasanu, then Tricia Smedley, our astronomer. I'm in the middle at the bottom, and on the left at the bottom is Randall Dunning, our other astronomer and our IT wizard who made the whole thing possible. We also expected to have Jamie Ginnett, an exercise physiologist from NASA, join the crew, but this happened just about the same time as the sequester. And due to the sequester, she was not able to join our team. Okay. Instead of the normal MDRS mission support from a network of volunteers around the world who check in for 2 hours every evening to make sure that the crew is okay, to collect reports and to help with troubleshooting, instead we were managed from Austria. And you can see that this is not mission support, this is actually mission control. Flight control up there, missions, well, it does say Mission Support Center, but really it was a much more hands-on sort of mission management than we were used to at MDRS. Okay. Case in point, instead of having just 2 hours of contact in the evening and being pretty much autonomous the rest of the day, the Austrian Mission Control Center scheduled us for every hour of the day, starting at 5 a.m. for breakfast. And every day they gave us a schedule, and every day they asked us how we actually spent our time. And you can see that the way we spent our time was about 3 to 4 hours displaced later in the day. Part of that was because many of us came from time zones where getting up at 5 in the morning Mountain Daylight or Mountain Standard Time was really not a good option. We also had 2 astronomers who needed to be up late at night. So as part of World Space Week, we collaborated with the Australian Space Federation, whose initials are OEWF, because it's in German, on a set of experiments that either collaborated with other World Space Week events around the world or followed up on some geological work at MDRS that had been initiated by European crews earlier in MDRS history. So one of the experiments we did was called DTREX, and it was based on the Delta experiments that were done with the Auda spacesuit in Morocco in early 2013. It's a comparison of suited and unsuited performance of very typical exploration tasks. For example, you can see this person, this shot was taken in Morocco, assembling a camera tripod and mounting a camera on top. We also did rock sampling and sand sampling, timed tasks, and obstacle courses, which we built ourselves out in the Utah desert. Okay. The glove trials were particularly fun because we had a number of different gloves to try, ranging from the Haratina Mogosanu's beautiful thin leather gloves, which were almost as good and quick as bare skin, to my ski gloves there on the bottom, which made it quite difficult to do anything at all. One of the fun things about World Space Week was a cartoonist back in New Zealand who read our reports every day and made cartoons out of them. This one, for those of you in the back, it says, it was interesting to note that one operator was unable to complete the soil and rock sampling tasks with the gloves that were chosen. That was, you can see that on the right. The little Kiwi can't really seem to get anything done. We found that we had to make impromptu tools of things that were in our pockets, like a screwdriver blade to open up plastic bags. But we did get the tasks done. Yeah. Another set of experiments we did was called change detection. That is, to track short-term changes in the appearance of the geological features in and around the MDRS environment. There were 5 sites photographed by 2 crews in 2006 and 2008. So we located them, which was really not very easy at all because of some confusion with the GPS coordinates. We visited them, photographed them, and recorded proper GPS coordinates in order to be able to explain and extend this experiment to later years. What we have up in the top is the mushroom garden, and down at the bottom is a feature that was nicknamed the giant's toes. Okay. And here's an example of the change that takes place just naturally in that environment. You can see up in the left-hand corner the 2006 shot from MDRS Crew 42. There are 2 rocks on 2 stems of dirt up there. By 2008, the first rock has fallen off, and a number of the other rocks have moved down the hill a ways. And in 2013, the picture taken by our crew, you can see that the soil support pole under the biggest rock at the top has continued to erode. The original support under the small rock to its left is almost gone, and the other materials have continued to move down the hill. So we expect that in future years other crews will go back and photograph this again, and as time wears on, the familiar geomorphic features around MDRS will be replaced with new ones. Okay. A second study that we did arose from a question about the Martian blueberries that were discovered by the Opportunity rover. And you can see a shot of those up in the upper right. Those are the blueberries themselves, so called because they were embedded in the underlying rock like blueberries in a muffin, according to Jim Bell, and because they were darker than the surrounding rock. Now, the Martian blueberries were made of hematite. The the surrounding rock was some sort of sandstone. I apologize to the geologists here. I am not one. The circular feature there is where the underlying rock was abraded by opportunity in an attempt to figure out better what it was. So these concretions, they're, blueberries is just a nickname. They're actually concretions. They are made when some sort of soluble mineral cements together around a nucleus and collects as that nucleus grows, and as the material accumulates around that nucleus, it will incorporate bits of the surrounding rock, which is typically sand. And on the bottom, there's a shot of sandstone concretions from Jordan. Now these concretions can be anywhere from millimeter sized all the way up to a meter or larger. They can get really, really large. And the ones around MDRS, I'm not sure what the cementing material is, but it's the same color as the sandstone. So we photographed them from a variety of distances, trying to answer the question whether a rover could actually see these from a distance in an outcrop. How close it would have to get to actually get a good look and see them. We collected a few of them for further study, and this was actually a follow-on to some work by a crew 2 years ago. Okay. So here we have now this work was done out of sim because it was extremely hot those days, and we didn't want to go out in the sunlight in that heat with the spacesuits on. So at the top you see 5 meters distance, and that's Randy Dunning there pointing out where the concretions are located. 50 centimeters distance with a Sharpie pen as a marker, and right up close with a quarter as a marker. And these are the larger concretions that we find around MDRS. There are also smaller ones that are colored the same as the sandstone, and there's Randy in the distance there, front and center, right in the center of the circle there is the image that you see over here, a concretion with a pen for a marker, and then even closer from 5 centimeters, you can really see that and how its texture is different from the surrounding sandstone. We also did sand sampling for a researcher in Austria who is interested in the traction properties of various surfaces on Mars. So the area around MDRS has a number of different kinds of finely divided materials. You can, as a non-geologist, I tend to classify them into the dark red, the light red, the gray, and the white. And here we took a picture of and got the coordinates of part of a hill near the habitat where water runoff has been eroding the hill and also separating the mud and the sand into different areas. And as we get closer, you can see that the white sand here is intermixed here with slightly larger bits of the mudstone. So we sampled this and we sent it back to Austria, and they are doing physical properties testing on it to try to predict the properties, the traction properties of this materials. Okay. We also did this for one of the sand hills right behind the hab, and you can see the large, the medium, and the small scale photographs, and the circular feature in the lower left photograph is the sand itself. It's extremely fine-grained and would be very, very difficult to move a rover in. It's the sort of thing that an ordinary automobile could get easily caught right up to the hubs. Okay. The final, there were a few more tests that we did, but the last thing that we did was a spacewalk, which was actually done in 3 different places around the world at the same actual time, not the same time of day, but the same time. So we had to coordinate with a group in North Dakota and another group in Europe, and everybody got into their spacesuits and got their communications ready. That's Randy on the left, who was who saved the day by interfacing our HAB Wi-Fi with by bringing out some of the equipment so that it could actually interface with iPhones and smartphones in the field. You can see Tricia is duct tape up there on her left arm. That's her phone, duct taped to her arm. And we also duct taped styluses to the other glove so that we could operate the phones. And then what we did along with the other three groups in 2 other locations, we ran an obstacle course in our suits. We assembled the tripod and the camera. We took samples. We came back, and we gave a password, and they gave us the code word in response to the password. Okay. And of the 4 groups that participated, we each had 1 word in a sentence. Afterwards, the Austrian Space Forum put this composite up on Facebook, and it was picked up by IFL Science, which is again, it's a sort of a video or a picture blog of wonderful science stuff, and this got maybe, I don't know, 500,000 views after it got picked up by IFLS. These are the 3 spacesuits, 3 of the 4 spacesuits that were there. The Aldecke from Austria, the NDX-2 suit from Pablo de Leon's laboratory at University of North Dakota, and then our old-fashioned MDRS analog suits. And IFLS had they had a little bit of a snarky remark about the 3rd suit, but I don't care. This is I got on IFLS, so that has to be good. So what did we learn from this? We learned by demonstration that multi-crew and multi-year geoscience projects open up a lot of new possibilities for science, particularly geological science at MDRS. Looking how things change in the landscape, having a science group that's far from the HAB, that works with maybe 1 crew a year or 1 crew every few years to gather data and bring it back. This is a way to get wonderful longitudinal data and to do really large-scale projects. Okay. Another lesson we learned was about crew-ground disconnect. That's when the crew has one set of expectations and mission support or mission control has another set of expectations, and those expectations don't exactly match, and it can be a little bit frustrating. So since this mission was put together in a fairly rapid time, we wound up with a lot of expectations conflicts because things hadn't been discussed out properly at the beginning. The crew, both of us, expected different things about what the other side would expect. We expected autonomy with a 2-hour reporting period. They expected reports every 15 minutes. We expected to struggle with the equipment. They expected our equipment to work perfectly the first time. And they expected us all to be highly trained geologists, of which there were actually only 2. But the most important lesson we learned was actually the 4-word sentence we came up with at the end of our spacewalk, connecting these 4 different groups. It is that space research really does connect people. Okay. So why haven't you heard anything about World Space Week 2014? It's because the topic here is not exactly appropriate for MDRS. But we expect that in the future we will be able to do more World Space Week missions at MDRS. and also to continue what we started in terms of collaborating with the European teams on geological studies. We also, given the success of the multi-suit testing in that last World Spacewalk, we can envision the possibility of doing multi-suit testing at MDRS. University of North Dakota and University of Maryland both have really good analog suits that we could compare to the MDRS suits, to each other, or to real pressure suits. And then there's also David Newman's suits from MIT. So we could envision a suit testing at MDRS in real Martian type landscape. There are also a number of rovers that I didn't talk about here from different research organizations around the world, mostly in Europe. And just like we have a university rover competition at MDRS, we could envision having multi-rover testings. And finally, we could do more, I think, experimentation with mission control, mission support procedures, and in coordinated outreach activities with several different sites, particularly for something like Yuri's Night. Okay. So I'll end by asking for any questions. I'd be happy to try to answer them. Yes?
How were the conflicts ultimately resolved between ground and mission control?
Some of them were left unresolved. We agreed to disagree about things like what was the proper time to start in the morning. Other times, they gave us more autonomy than they expected to. We met in the middle, really. We complied with their requests for contacts every 15 minutes during waking hours, as they expected, except when everybody was out doing stuff. We found the Austrian Mission Control very helpful if we had questions for the scientists in their back room. They would relay the questions, they'd come back to us quickly with answers. And they were very precise and very well organized, just like you'd expect from a group that's been running World Space Week activities in Europe for many years. Okay.
Were the other two suits as well analog suits?
They were analog suits, yes, but they were both pressurized type suits. Of a kind that would be, I think, a little dangerous to have at MDRS because they take a long time to get in and out of. And the fact that they're completely sealed and they have self-contained breathing apparatus means that if anything goes badly wrong, you basically have to rip the suit apart to save the person inside. So I would, if I were going to test a number of different suits at MDRS, I would go for analog suits that aren't completely self-contained, at least until we get more experience with self-contained suits and amateur operators on one hand, and with doing this sort of thing at MDRS on the other hand.
Maybe one more.
Okay, there's, yes.
Well, I guess it's obvious, but an actual Mars suit would have to be completely self-contained, correct?
Absolutely, but there's a lot that you can learn from an analog suit in terms of the demands on the individual, the biomechanics points that might be, say, pressure points, the cooling system, the dexterity, things like can you climb, how much of a hill can you climb? You can do that with mock-up suits that just have air blown in from the outside. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.